When it comes to powerlifting, mentally preparing to execute in a competition or a training session will help you perform better. Mentally being in the right headspace may look like,
they said you were done. They said you had. Will you sacrifice to win?
but sometimes it may look like. So whether you like to psych up or calm down, does psyching up even work? And if it does it work on everyone? And if not everyone, who does it work on? In this video, I will go through 6 research-backed psych up and mental preparation strategies, and I will guide you through figuring out what works best for you. So why is psyching up or mental preparation important for powerlifting? Well, in powerlifting performance, strength or force production is key, but strength is not synonymous to powerlifting performance. Instead, performance can be best conceptualized as the sum of strength and skill combined, or motor control, as at the end of the day, the squat, bench, and deadlift are a set of very specific tasks. So what is psyching up? Now, if we revisit our biology, we have our brain being part of the central nervous system, and then we've got the peripheral nervous system, which is then broken up into the somatic nervous system, which controls the muscles, and the autonomic nervous system, which regulates the physiological processes, including heart rate and hormones like adrenaline. Now, these parts of the nervous system will have a direct effect on your force production and motor control. Now, with the sympathetic nervous system, which is part of your autonomic nervous system, is also responsible for your fight or flight system, which is often seen as pretty important when it comes to force production. So it makes sense that psyching up and mental preparation is going to have a direct impact on performance. But let's actually define what we mean by psyching up. Now, taking a 2005 paper by David Todd and colleagues titled "Psyching Up Enhances Force Production During the Bench Press Exercise," they define psyching up as the use of self-directed cognitive strategies designed to enhance physical performance. Strategies typically used include preparatory arousal, imagery, attentional focus, and positive self-talk. Now, in this study of 20 participants, they had 3 groups. Now, one group had a free choice psych up strategy. The second group had an attention placebo, where they were told that they would do well without psyching up. And then the third group had a distraction control, where participants were asked to engage in a mental task that prevented them from psyching up. And they found that psyching up led to an 11.8% increase compared to a distraction condition, and an 8.1% increase over the placebo condition. And using the smallest worthwhile improvement method, these figures provided evidence that the psych up effect has a 99.5% and 98% chance of being beneficial for this sample compared with a distraction and attention placebo respectively. To explain the mechanism behind this effect, they suggested that altered psychological states, changes in physiological arousal, and changes in mechanical factors have all been proposed as possible reasons, but the evidence is still conflicting. So far, the body of research the effect of a psyching strategy on neuromuscular activation and force production in strength-trained men, and they looked at force and EMG activity of the biceps and triceps brachii during a maximal isometric action of the forearm flexors with the elbow at 90 degrees. And they found that psyching resulted in a perception of enhanced readiness, but did not influence force or muscular activation. But the limitation to this study is extrapolating this to powerlifting and comparing the task at hand. Anecdotally, performing in a closed chain exercise versus an open chain exercise like the main 3 lifts in powerlifting are mentally very different tasks. The author from the first paper I mentioned earlier also published a systematic review in 2015 titled "A Systematic Review of the Effect of Cognitive Strategies on Strength Performance." And then they found that results were mixed when examining the effects of specific strategies on particular dependent variables, although no intervention had an overall negative influence. And the authors concluded that although the evidence generally suggests that cognitive strategies enhance strength, muscular endurance, and local muscular power, additional research is needed to investigate the applicability of these studies beyond the tasks and people currently examined. Research is also needed to investigate the possible reasons why cognitive strategies may be effective. So my opinion on psyching up is that there probably isn't anything particular that stands out in a way that discourages me from getting athletes to explore psyching up techniques. So ultimately, it is going to be a journey of trial and error to figure out what works best for you. And this is key for individualizing mental preparation for athletes. So how much should we psych up? Less experienced lifters will often default to maximizing the intensity of psyching up, but that may not always be the best thing. This is where I introduce the Yerkes-Dodson law. Now, this law is a psychological principle that describes the relationship between arousal and performance. It basically suggests that elevated arousal levels can improve performance, but only up to a certain point. So ultimately, there is an optimal level of arousal for peak performance on any task, including powerlifting. Now, too much arousal can lead to anxiety and detract you from performance. And this suggests that powerlifters need to find the right balance of arousal to maximize their performance. Find out which. So some lifters may benefit from changing how psyched up they are for each individual lift. For example, They may benefit from being slightly more psyched up for the squat, but somewhat calmer for the bench press. And also, to the level that you are going to psych up may actually change over time. And it may be the case that, and interestingly, the level of arousal that you may need may change over time as well. And it may be the case that as you get more experienced, you don't need to psych up as much. Or you may feel more comfortable to psych up even more. So let's figure out how we can psych up. So here are 6 common strategies that lifters can use to successfully perform. First one is preparatory arousal. Now, preparatory arousal is about getting into the optimal state of arousal to perform, which can include rituals like listening to a playlist of songs, jumping up and down, or getting aggressive at the bar. So it really is just an umbrella term that includes some of the later listed strategies, but can include other unique routines to get into the flow state. Now, a study from 2021 from Takarada and Nazaki titled "Shouting Strengthens Maximal Voluntary Force and is Associated with Augmented Pupillary Dilation" found that producing a shout increased hand grip maximal voluntary force through the enhancement of motor cortical excitability, possibly via the enhancement of the noradrenergic system activity. Now, this study provides evidence that the muscular force enhancing effect of shouting during maximal force exertion. And it's no surprise that shouting is likely going to work. If you go to any regular powerlifting competition, you can hear it.
4 years is an eternity for powerlifting. This is crazy, Mo's attempting this.
Now, the second strategy is smelling salts. Now, smelling salts are a common tool used by weightlifters, powerlifters, and even strongman competitors to enhance performance before a big lift. When sniffed, smelling salts release a small amount of ammonia gas, which irritates the membranes of the nose and the lungs, triggering an inhalation reflex. And then this reflex can increase the breathing rate, heart rate, and stimulate the body's fight or flight response, leading to a release of adrenaline. It can also enhance focus, alertness, and provide a temporary boost of energy and strength, making them useful for powerlifters attempting maximal lifts. However, it is important to use them sparingly and not to overuse them, as they can reduce fine motor skills and may have potential side effects such as headaches or eye irritation. But do they actually work? In a 2018 randomized controlled trial paper titled "Acute Effects of Ammonia Inhalants on Strength and Power Performance in Trained Men," they showed that a potential ergogenic effect of ammonia inhalants on the rate of force development, i.e. explosive force output, with a trend towards an improvement in maximal force production. The mechanism of action may be related to the stimulatory action of ammonia inhalants, often reported by athletes as a psyching up effect. The positive effect of ammonia inhalants on the rate of force development may represent an advantage in sports requiring high rates of force production. On another hand, in the same year, another randomized controlled trial titled "Ammonia Inhalation Does Not Increase Deadlift 1 Repetition Maximum in College-Aged Male and Female Weightlifters." In the study, these participants had their 1 rep maxes tested for baseline and tested again within a minimum of a 72-hour duration afterwards. The authors wrote that within the limitations of the study, there is no support for the practice of ammonia inhalation to improve deadlift 1 rep max in training or competition. So the research isn't conclusive on its efficacy, but if you personally like to use them and you feel that it helps you focus, then absolutely no reason not to use them. However, it is important that you have practice with them when leading up to a powerlifting competition, and so that you're not using them for the first time in a meet. So the third strategy is mental imagery. So mental imagery may include rehearsal of the movement or visualizing a successful outcome. Now, mentally rehearsing the mechanics of the lift and the entire lifting process can help prepare the mind and body for the task. Now, visualizing a successful outcome can enhance performance through putting you in a slightly more confident state of mind and bring your nervousness down. Sometimes that nervousness can make you forget certain cues as you get overwhelmed by the weight. In a 2016 paper by Slimani and colleagues titled "The Effects of Mental Imagery on Muscular Strength in Healthy and Patient Participants, a Systematic Review," found that internal mental imagery has a greater effect on muscle strength than external mental imagery does, and concluded that the greater effects of internal imagery than those of external imagery could be explained in terms of neural adaptations, stronger brain activation, higher muscle excitation, greater somatic and sensory motor activation, and physiological responses such as blood pressure, heart rate, and respiration rate. So let's move on to the fourth strategy, positive self-talk. So positive self-talk is a cognitive motivational strategy that involves the use of positive internal dialogue to enhance performance. Sometimes it can be out loud, like,
They said you were done. They said you had no chance.
and this strategy can help to reduce anxiety, and so it can be useful if you are someone who gets overly psyched up and stimulated. This strategy involves the use of positive affirming statements to enhance confidence, focus, and motivation. It is a subtle but commonly used protocol for psyching up before competition or training sessions. And the next strategy is attentional focus. Now, focusing on the task at hand and blocking out distractions will probably be beneficial for most people. Attentional focus in the context of psyching up refers to the ability to direct one's attention to specific cues or aspects of the task in order to enhance performance. Now, this can involve focusing on internal cues such as bodily sensations like foot pressure or body parts, or external cues such as the movement towards an external target. So the important question is, how do we choose to psych up? So you need to figure out which mental prep strategy works best for you and how to intensely you need to psych up. Now, going back to the inverse U curve, it's important to figure out where you lie on the curve at the time. Being under or over aroused can impact performance negatively. If your arousal is too low, an athlete may feel not up to the task, while if it's too high, they may choke or make crucial mistakes. One way to know if you're under or over aroused is to pay attention to your level of activation, alertness, and anxiety. Now, if you're under aroused, a lifter may feel unmotivated, fatigued, while being over aroused may exhibit intense pressure, stress, anxiety, and may be uncoordinated and often misgroove with the execution. When it comes to picking your approach, it's important to know that some of these strategies will often bias up-regulating your arousal, whereas some other ones will down-regulate your arousal. Things like shouting or smelling salts, more often than not, will up-regulate your fight or flight, whereas positive self-talk, attentional focus, and mental imagery can down-regulate you from being over-aroused. So I hope you found this guide useful. Mental prep is often one of those things that, when done right, can allow you to maximize your competition day potential. You may have the strength on the day for it, but if you're not mentally prepared to execute right, you may throw away attempts down the drain. Now, let me know in the comments below about what strategies you use and what you think about it. And as always, click like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next one.